Sutra of Relationships, Law and Deeds. A person is defined by their deeds, not their words. We observe how a person acts, and we treat others only as we would like to be treated in the same situation. Almost all of us, with rare exceptions, learn from childhood to create illusions, to appear good, noble, or successful. However, there is a significant difference between being good and appearing good. Being is based on real actions, while appearing relies on beautiful words. A person who builds their image on words is building castles in the sand, which collapse in an instant, often revealing the opposite of what was intended. It can be difficult to accept this revelation, and we tend to quickly displace reality from our consciousness by shifting the blame to others. I'm good, I couldn't have thought, said, done, something so horrible it's not my fault, but someone else's. And thus begins the search for someone to blame. On a larger scale, nations behave similarly, striving more to appear than to be. They invest taxpayer money in populist projects, while their fundamental systems, education, healthcare, and real law and order are eroded by corruption, theft, and mismanagement. To divert attention from this internal decay, it is easier to point fingers at neighbors and declare, those are the enemies, the dictators. As Spinoza said, what Peter says about Paul tells us more about Peter than about Paul. People tend to notice in others what they try to hide in themselves, fearing others might notice it too. That's why it's crucial to pay attention to what someone says about others. Psychologists call this tendency to project our negative qualities onto others projection. This is a psychological defense mechanism by which internal thoughts, feelings, and traits are mistakenly perceived as coming from external sources. An extreme form of projection, according to German psychiatrist Friedrich Perls, is paranoia. A paranoid person is highly aggressive, unable to take responsibility for their own illusions, desires, and feelings, and instead attributes them to people or objects in their environment. But projection also manifests in less extreme forms. For example, creative activities often involve projection. Writers, for instance, may become their characters during the creative process. Unlike a neurotic individual who loses themselves in projection, a writer remains aware of where they end, and their characters begin. However, attributing our negative traits to others allows us to deny responsibility for them. This defense mechanism often leads to the desire to correct or eliminate the external object onto which negativity is projected. Witch hunts and persecution of specific groups are methods by which people battle their own inner vices and fears of exposing those faults within themselves. People fear their weaknesses and try to bury them deep, so no one accidentally uncovers them. But sometimes our weak spots hold potential for growth. As a saying goes, look at your weaknesses and what you dislike doing, that's your potential. Acknowledging our flaws can be a path to development. In reality, people who indulge in gossip and replace action with empty talk are generally disliked. As the saying goes, less talk, more action. It is often easier to promise than to act, and those who are hesitant to act often hide behind words. A person who feels confident in their strength doesn't waste time on idle chatter or gossip. Words can be sweet like honey, but deeds can be bitter like wormwood. In the Ipadiev Chronicle under the year 1249, Prince Rostislav Mihailovich is depicted as a negative character. While besieging Yaroslavl, he boasted that if he knew where his enemies, Daniel and Vasilko Romanovich, were, he would fight them with just 10 warriors. Meanwhile, he engaged in a mock battle, injuring himself, a bad omen for the real fight to come. While words may seem powerful, they cannot replace action. Words can comfort, calm, or deeply wound. As Sartre once said, words are loaded pistols. Negative words about others create rumors that can tarnish reputations and distort the truth. Therefore, it's essential to listen and analyze what people say and emphasize, because communication is an exchange of emotions. From word to deed lies a great distance. Philosophers like Paul Ricoeur, Karl Marx, and Friedrich Nietzsche have argued that people are often not what they seem, even to themselves. There are always hidden motives behind actions, whether subconscious, as in Freud's theory, class interests, according to Marx, or the will to power disguised as religiousness, as Nietzsche argued. True morality is not what is declared, but what is practiced in everyday life. If ideals of liberalism, democracy, and tolerance are proclaimed, but people are persecuted for their views, race, or religion, then true democracy does not exist. In stressful situations, a person's true nature is revealed. People may respond with fight or flight, revealing their psychological type and temperament. In all religions, idle talk is considered a human weakness leading to laziness, pride, judgment, and other sins. Only a life of action leads to self-improvement. The Bible teaches that one is known by their fruits. By their fruits, you will know them. A good tree brings forth good fruit, and a bad tree brings forth bad fruit. Matthew 7:16-17. Words may hide a different content, and St. Paul warned, such people are not serving our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. By smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the minds of naive people. Romans 16:18. In his interpretation of the Epistle to the Romans, Theophan the Recluse noted that these corrupters always have the Lord on their lips, but they do not serve him. Instead, they use his name to cover their wickedness. The method they employ is words pleasing to the ear and flattering to the heart. With sweet words, they deceive the hearts of the innocent. Evil eyes do not see goodness. Saint Athanasius the Great, 4th century, spoke about how important it is not to judge a person by their outward appearance, status, or words, but by their deeds. If you see someone with a decent appearance, do not focus on whether he is dressed in sheep's clothing or holds the title of presbyter, bishop, deacon, or ascetic. Instead, seek to know his deeds. Is he chaste, hospitable, merciful, full of love, constant in prayer, patient? If his belly is his God and his throat a bottomless pit, if he suffers from greed and exploits piety, then leave him. He is not a wise shepherd but a ravenous wolf. If you can judge trees by their fruits, determining their species, taste, and quality, all the more should you judge false believers by their deeds, even if they boast of their reverence while having a devilish soul. In Buddhism, slander is seen both as a sign of the slanderer's baseness and as a karmic consequence for the slandered person's past misdeeds. For example, one of Buddha's disciples was an arhat, meaning he had escaped the cycle of rebirth and freed himself from troubling emotions and states of mind by taking 3 sets of vows. However, people falsely accused him of breaking his vows and even brought false witnesses against him. Buddha was upset and declared that henceforth, he would not consider anyone a true Buddhist if they falsely accused a highly realized disciple, viewing them as a threat to Buddhism. When asked why the arhat was criticized, Buddha explained that it was due to the arhat's previous life, where he was a gossip and slanderer. Thus, what happened was a consequence. And yet, those who criticize the faults of others, true or false, accumulate negative karma. Do not trust the words of others but trust your own eyes. A vicious dog sees a stick everywhere. In the desire to please others and earn approval, a person learns to mask their true self and behave differently with each individual, hiding their true essence. Yet, there are moments when the inner nature of a person becomes visible, such as when they talk about others in their absence. In Islam, intentions and words are important, but actions take precedence. They speak louder and reflect a person's true essence. From the Islamic perspective, Allah creates human actions, as well as those of all creatures, though creatures claim them as their own. Allah created you and what you do. Quran 37:96. This teaching is not an allegory. Human actions are created by Allah but acquired by humans. However, free will is expressed in Islam through the motivation behind actions, based on the belief in accountability for all the good and evil one does in this life. According to Islam, one who denies this responsibility cannot consider themselves a believer. The moral norms of the Quran warn against evil actions for the sake of one's well-being and to prevent one's degradation and self-destruction. In this lies the highest wisdom. He grants wisdom to whom He wills, and whoever has been granted wisdom has certainly been given much good. Quran 2:269. The companion of the Prophet Muhammad, Ibn Zayd, said, "Every word that advises you or calls you to do good or restrains you from evil is wisdom." Quran 6:5. According to the Quran, the highest moral goal is to earn the love and favor of God. Actions done in the name of Allah return as blessings to all. What belongs to their partners does not reach Allah, but what belongs to Allah reaches their partners. Quran 6:137. This speaks to human responsibility before God, each individual's accountability for their actions. A Muslim constantly remembers this, not only before Allah but also before their conscience and society at large. This is why every action reflects the strength of faith in a person. Trust words, but verify deeds. The true housekeeper is not the one who talks, but the one who cooks the soup. In Judaism, good deeds that might tempt someone to boast and speak of their own nobility are deliberately named to prevent the benefactor from becoming proud. For example, the literal translation of the word tzedakah is justice rather than charity. The word charity in other languages often carries a connotation of pride and egoism, as if implying, "I owe this poor person nothing, but I am so kind that I grant them charity." In contrast, the word tzedakah in Hebrew reflects one of the fundamental principles of Judaism: everything I have, I received from the Almighty, and in reality, He is the true owner of my wealth. Since He commands me to share with my brother, I must do so with joy, regardless of my nature. This reduces the temptation for self-praise. Temptations to misbehave or demonstrate one's superiority over another abound in our lives. The French philosopher Michel de Montaigne wrote in his essays, On Repentance: the world sometimes considers a miracle those people whom their wife or servant find nothing remarkable in. Goethe succinctly echoed this in his reflections on Napoleon, for the valet, there are no great men. It was a reference to the emperor's trivial daily surroundings. This often happens not because Napoleon is not great, but because the valet is limited in his ability to appreciate greatness. Swift with words, lazy in deeds. What this expression means is that a limited person is incapable of truly appreciating a great person. Instead, they judge them by their own mediocrity, lacking the imagination or ability to see beyond. Yet great people often reveal the scale of their character even in small actions. History offers many examples of this. Once, Queen Victoria attended a diplomatic reception in London. The guest of honor was an African chief. Everything was going well until the meal was served. Each guest was provided with a basin of water for washing their hands. The African, unfamiliar with this custom, drank all the water from his basin. The earls and lords at the table were shocked and whispered among themselves. But the queen found a way out. She followed the guest's example, and soon, all the courtiers followed suit. It was a truly noble gesture that allowed the African chief to avoid embarrassment. Not everyone, especially someone of lesser rank, would dare drink the water meant for hand washing. But the queen did so because she understood, the impact of the action far outweighed that of words. Unconsidered judgments of others reveal who we are. And it is dreadful if those judgments are filled with envy, indifferent disregard, misunderstanding, or even meanness. This is the true picture of our moral failure. What follows will be a matching action equally selfish and base as our egocentric and ignoble words. Therefore, we must keep strict control over our judgments and condemnations, restraining our thoughts, as they tend to manifest in actions we may later regret. Those who have no malice in their hearts see goodness in everyone.